no audio. And that's the second time this has happened. And that's just the no audio thing. Forget the no audio thing. The whole like just complete video skipping. Like I made this whole entire part when I was over here playing Soul Calibur. I'm over here playing Soul Calibur. These people sending all these crazy subliminals. I address the subliminals like a grown ass man. Then all of a sudden, the next day, I go check to see what happened. The whole entire part of the video missing. I speak on some of the things that's going on in Virginia in terms of like the harassment and all this other stuff. Then all of a sudden, like those parts of the video get segmented and cut out. But if I need to go ahead and recite everything that I just went over, you know, I can go ahead and recite it. Most of the content about smoking on the internet are just regular recreational people's perspective. They got all this propaganda out trying to make it seem like a real smoker is just someone who has some sort of mental disorder, they're unhealthy, they're facing some sort of addiction. When they're high, they're super focused, and that's the perspective of a narc. That's the perspective of someone who smokes recreationally. And that's the reason why the industry is never going to deal with synthetic and pure. As far as these divestors and all this other stuff, it's like, yeah, the mainstream has pushed them, but what have they done? They've done nothing. They show you all this information about them being independent and strong and you know, doing whatever it is that they do, but they can't actually show them doing anything cohesively with men. They always got to show them separated, like they supposed to be some sort of girls here, men there, you know, Spelman University. We got to keep the guys away from the girls. Like, at what point do you become an adult? When are you able to show any sort of cohesion of any sort of collective decision making that provided any sort of prosperity for anyone? We know that women like Kamala are used as bloodhounds for real black men. We know that, you know, based on their psyche, they'll understand the black men that they need to tear down, because the black men that will attract their focus are going to be the ones that they're going to use all the supremacy to get behind and hate. This is the reason why you can have 3 straight years go by and see nothing but devastation and destruction to an entire segment of people that have been portrayed and paraded around in the media as lost cause, lost minds, homosexuals. They over here in Chicago being gentrified out of their own houses. And then they got these people out here acting out these CNBC TV series called this TV series is called Scandal. These people really doing this in real life. These people really sitting here like hotel room. And this is the problem. We haven't seen anyone actually show any segments of these women doing anything collectively progressive for the collective of black people. They're always angry. They're always so powerful, but at the same time, all we've seen is nothing but suffering and struggling, and no relief. None of that money from we haven't seen any practical use of this money from Black Lives Matter. None of the police force has been used to investigate that. We appreciate this whole entire, you know what I mean, that we have going on with everyone from Black Hollywood. Thank you for, turning in the worst among us, but we haven't seen any resolutions to any of the things that have put up in all these different places. They got caught up, and then at best, like they will be a good worker. In Green Party News, there's a dude in there. This guy is a political analyst. He put up the entire every black individual in government and asked the question, what have they done in the past 3 years besides give away all your rights to immigrants and just keep their jobs? And there is no political evidence that they've done anything. Over there in Chicago, they're being gentrified out of their homes. Not gentrified out of what they rent. They're literally getting gentrified out of their houses in Chicago. These people really losing these homes. It's interesting. Gentrification seems so unreal, but it's real. This is happening, and this is happening under these people. And so I was watching some information, they talk about people like Venus and Serena Williams or whatever. They talk about Whoopi Goldberg. I didn't know Whoopi Goldberg married so many white men. They talk about some of these people over here in Congress, one of these ladies with braids and some square spectrums, people like Kamala. And you look at these people's track records towards the black community, and it's nothing but harm, nothing but detrimental, super homosexual. They should know better. This is beyond common sense. But this is what this body of individuals has come up with. And then on top of that, they over here, flaunting different situations. See, you always look at it like, oh, well, maybe this is a real love story. Maybe this isn't a situation of insecurity. And then you realize that it always is a situation of insecurity because I'm sitting over here looking at this information. They talk about all these people that have had these iconic interracial relationships with these women. And they talked about how, they had they were all astounding and they were all, whatever they were, but they all came to an end. And they all always do. Because they never are true. They never actually have purpose. They're always provocative. And it just goes to show that they're always done out of insecurity. And so putting these people in positions of power has done nothing but, use their bird brain mentality and applied it to more realer issues that we have all the way across the world. The whole entire United States is in a worse place now than what it was before. These people over here, at best, they just kept their jobs because they sure as hell haven't done anything to help anyone. And on top of that, these people get caught up in all types of scandals and stuff like that because they have no perception of what money is. These people coming from poverty, these people have no true vetting process. They're put in place for true reasons of sexism, true acts of deviance. And it just all comes to the surface. It always does. This lady over here talking about she thinks Candace Owens, is really like that. In other words, basically, like kind of more or less justifying her character versus, where she is at in life in terms of her relationship decisions. Not like the other ones. I mean, yeah, okay, you can have some sort of complexion dysphoria. And then come to a decision that this is a route that you want to go. But going that route and then just turning around and tearing down black people, going that route and then having it just simply be some sort of provocateur as if you're supposed to be worth something. This is supposed to be some sort of this is supposed to be some sort of flex. Only just goes to show how in despair you are when your people are suffering and you do nothing for them besides have people that that you identify with. Regardless of however these people get in office, these people get in these places and they don't get any friction from the outside pre-existing coalition because these people, they identify with one another. They identify as being a part of the same tribe. When they sit over here and do whatever it takes to keep their job and just slightly steal money, in places like Chicago, they just do whatever they told as far as the immigration. Millions here, millions there, millions everywhere. And then meanwhile, you all still getting stuck. And now they got to the point where they going to the suburbs. They got these people over here. I don't know, this one lady, she done took money out of the fund. She done put her boyfriend on the board. He getting paid $310K a year. He don't got no type of background. They over here bullying people out of mortgages and all types of wild stuff, using their political powers and stuff like that. They got people out here putting hits on people. They got people out here sending their little sons to go punch people out. They got these people over here doing jail time. These people could have been doing all of that. They could have been investing all of those things to good. And this is the consequence. Of putting the women ahead. Just for the sake of being like, oh, they're ahead now. Wouldn't it be a crazy idea if we decided to have this type of leader? Guess what? No, it wouldn't. Didn't work. It ruined everything. What were they thinking? Look at the devastation. And they still over here, touting and glowing this whole entire, black women, hoorah. It's like, all right, you guys are so powerful. Now let's see that power actually work out in functional relationships in these kids. Let's see some movies talking about somebody raising their daughters. Let's see some movie, raising them right. Let's see some movies about people overcoming these things, doing what's right, improving the community. Let's see some movies about that, because I'm not seeing that reflected in the land. So I'm just trying to figure out if it's happening at all. Because that's what we need to see. We don't need to see no timepieces don't nobody care about. You over here showing something from the Civil War. You over here in this all-female battalion. It's nice to, see you guys in Orange is the New Black, little lesbian things going on. Little, jail fantasies. But ain't nobody really trying to really like sit here and see this in real life, just like girl domination. And you all keep trying to portray this, super dominant black female image as if it's not a failure. Why can't it be, this person, actually achieving something of accomplishment within their community, building things up, ending on a positive note in real life? Because they sat over here and portrayed black men like just some straight up raging homosexuals. And those type of women you get out of those type of situations. I don't even know what happened. I think really what it was something about maybe trying to like make, have a surrogate president or something like that, and then them just maybe just taking on like a whole entire black coalition just on their own, just on the strength of like Democrats. So I don't know what they did. I don't know how they determined the ethics and values of what it was they were trying to do, or if they really did just look at it like, yo, if you're black, I'm black. What do you eat? Like, I eat this. Where are you from? I'm from here. All right, cool. You're hired. Like, they went off with that. Then that would explain all of the, failure and whatnot. And and it's interesting because like I don't really even want to talk about it like that, but just looking at my camera and then seeing that it was muted, this man said no audio at 9 in the morning. I got the message at 12 o'clock. Another thing I mentioned was of how I realized I got to fight. The core of the issue really comes down to women. And the reality of the matter is that when it comes to dealing with women, most guys are pitiful. They're pitiful in regards to primary engagements. They're pitiful in regards to secondary engagements. This means dudes that's still, in multiple, dudes that are deceptive at every turn when it comes to dealing with women. Even those type of guys get caught up in emotional thunderstorms. And what it translates to, when it comes to being a man is they're just never going to side with you. This is why it's almost better if you are to sit here and try to go down some sort of like typical approach. You're better off being married and being a part of the mainstream. If you expect to go down the typical like work, provide for myself path. Otherwise, they're gonna just, a lot of these people, they make these situations where they'll be really feeling like strong emotions towards different women in the office, and women will weaponize that. Anyways, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm disappointed and drained to find that the mic was muted. Because I said a lot of stuff. Levels of consciousness. People being in the matrix. Understanding why people are in the matrix versus why some people aren't. Not everyone is meant. Also, like understanding, like not getting caught up in the idea of society being off. The reality of the matter is not everyone can see because not everyone has a purpose in life. Not everyone is supposed to be able to see. Not everyone has some sort of destiny that can achieve that that requires that level of perception. Not everyone has that potential. Not everyone has that heritage. Not everyone has that bloodline. Not everyone has that level, the ability to access that level of thought, that level of consciousness. So a lot of people will forever live their life perceived from what you understand or perceive to be the matrix. They will always live in that herd of an existence. These are people that ultimately probably wouldn't really be able to live under any other sort of conditions. And so they'll always more or less live life from a reactive state. They'll always be more or less stuck in that state of consciousness. But that doesn't mean that society has to digress with them. And it doesn't mean that them being stuck in that mentality is detrimental to the overall progress of the world. In other words, you being able to correct the world is not a matter of you in giving everyone the ability to see beyond. However, it's putting the right direction of the microphone of everyone's vision in the right area. Therefore, by doing so, society as a whole will advance. You will have greater things of greater conception to keep you progressing and advancing. One example of that is like Nintendo. One example of that is like Michael Jordan. One example of that is Sega Genesis. Another example of that is the iPhone. This is kind of like where we're stuck at because we're going, but these are examples of it. But the rate at which these things occur and the normality of their impact being as impactful as what they can be is a matter of turning the focus of the masses into a direction of progression. Because they will forever be in the alpha beta mentality. They will never be able to traverse it. They're not designed to. It's just because not everyone in this world is created equal. The ability to have consciousness, the ability to have intelligence is relative to your, it's literally a gift. It's a gift to be able to see things at a level of complexity. To be able to see things at a level of vibrance, to be able to understand like pure core power, to be able to have like genuine perception. Not everyone is born with the ability to do it. A lot of people are not that smart. These are people that have to perceive life through that orchestrated perception of it in order to resemble something of relativity as they live. So it's really just a matter of changing that direction. But through, aside from that, levels of consciousness and meditating and smoking, the mainstream perspective of it versus the actual reality of it. And the difference of the two, why a real smoker will be able to perceive something as recreational and never accept it, whereas the masses and the majority will always accept recreational and never reject it. What are some examples of recreationals that aren't rejected? Simple things like Delta 8. Another thing is like the, one thing that is flown by, like the spray pack. Another example of this are vape carts that are just genuine, that are just synthetic. They know it's synthetic. These people gassing up these synthetic products. They know what's synthetic. They know when things are far from organic. They know when they're using different sort of chemicals, whatever agents. They know what they're doing. When they're really releasing these different forms of CBDs. Pushing the strain, and I don't want to talk too much about it. But the thing about smoking, And your ability to understand things is like when you smoke, you're able to see things from your highest state of being. Once you get over the challenge of self-realization, and full consciousness, you're able to perceive things from a perspective of mind, body, and spirit. Your body is not so much an influential factor. Your mind is not so much an over dominating architect. Your heart is not constantly, able to keep you deluded of everything. You're more fully aware. This is the point when you start smoking and you can't, you don't sit there and take the mindset of like, because you smoked, you can't, like, you basically get to the point where you don't really blame any of your shortcomings on the fact of you smoking or being high. And this is the point where, like I said before, I hate to really not to challenge people, but this is the point where you're able to smoke and drive. You're able to smoke and read. You're able to smoke and think of something constructive. You're not necessarily smoking for recreation. People that are like, oh, let me smoke and then listen to this music, that's recreation. People that are like, oh, let me smoke and then go to this party, that's recreation. Once you get to a point of like just self-awareness, you can smoke and more or less relax, or just, it's not so much a perceived inhibition of tabor or whatever it's called. And it's not this sort of like far out wavy, creator central where everything you have is like neon green and like light purple. Those are stages of smoking. But once you really get past the point of an experience and being high, this is the point of consciousness where you are able to achieve like basic, typical consciousness. This is the average consciousness. And see, someone like me, a smoker, like doesn't particularly smoke for the mentality of like getting high or like being high. Examples of this are like people that really enjoy the act of like being stoned. Don't get me wrong, I like smoking stony things. This is the reason why I smoke do-si-do. But this is also the reason why I can kind of perceive this as synthetic. It's like once you get past the point of like, being, a typical stoner, or like, I don't know what they call those people. Or I mean, or like, entry level hippies, at this point you'll realize if you're really a hippie or not, or if you're just someone that just went through a smoking experience which lasted a long time. Going from a conventional mind and then going through smoking to the point where you're able to actually have perception really is a matter of meditation, and your ability to achieve those levels of mental fortifying states has to do more or less with when you're brought into this world, the caliber of people that are immediately around you. There are not too many people that will come to the conclusion of breaking the matrix on their own general conception. This is why people in spirituality are typically able to do it. People that are interested in things like deeper questions of life. Those are typically going to be the people that are always trying to improve themselves so that they can harness more information, more power, more understanding. And these will be people that will attempt meditation, and these will be a lot of the people that will actually achieve it. These will be people that will break the mental boundary of being in what you can conceive outside of the matrix as the matrix. And so, me personally, like when I smoke, it's interesting. I was like watching this content, these people out here making, getting high, they're describing like getting high. They're like, oh, if you smoke all the time, you must have some sort of problem, or you must be some sort of addict. You come to understand Yogi's statement of like, I don't smoke because I like to control my consciousness, because you're able to perceive consciousness. And one thing that you kind of understand as a smoker, especially like me, when through meditation and achieving the highest state of conscious understanding, is that the idea is that when you don't smoke, to have your mind, work your mind to the point where the way that you perceive things in your highest consciousness is the way that you perceive things without smoking at all. And so you're always working on your basic mind state without smoking. This is why you don't smoke. This is why someone like me, like I'll smoke, and then I'll say, okay, I'm gonna go a month without smoking, and I'm gonna work on my foundational mind, to where my foundational mind is elevated to my highest train of thought, to where I'm able to understand things and conceive things transversally, as a way of putting it. And I'm able to get lost in the dynamic, not really get lost in the dynamic, but traverse the dynamic and come to greater understanding. I have to get my base mind, the one that's always constantly distracted, stuck in alpha and beta, into a controllable mental state. This is what you conceive through meditation. Through meditation, through real meditation, through actually achieving the thought mind wavelength that you achieve at the highest wavelength, you are able to conceive information that will empower you. This is information that empowers you. It's just you working on you building your base mind. The challenge to this and the issue with this is that you have to typically be smoking gas in order for you to, when you smoke gas, it makes it a lot easier once you've gotten past the point of like self-understanding coinciding with smoking. But see, the mainstream perspective is the perspective of like, oh, this person's getting high. Because they conceive someone who's smoking all the time as someone who's like constantly going through some type of experience. They're riding the waves. They're couch locked. They're stuck in a daze. They're hyper focused. They're using the CBD to ease their pain. Like, they really think that like this is what you're doing with this. And this is the reason why they smoke recreational and you smoke pure. You sitting there smoking what they smoke, and you like, what? This is really what you all are smoking? And this is what the masses smoke, because the masses never achieved the state of base consciousness that is slightly above alpha and beta, that they're really so entertained by. This is the reason why what they call psychedelic effects. This is the reason why they over here talking about psychedelic effects. You over here is a real smoker. Like, what are they talking about? But you get to that point when you achieve that level of consciousness, and it's not easy. But through meditating, if you truly are someone that has the capacity to break the matrix on your own, you would do it through constant acts. Typically, spiritual people will be inclined to take these steps because of their endless journey of self-improvement, self-refinement, greater understanding, asking philosophy-filled questions, but then also not being stuck at conventional, dead ends like atheism. Only then are you able to really understand, like, okay, when I'm meditating, this is what I am understanding, this is what I'm conceiving. The mainstream perspective is like, oh, this is when it goes from healthy to unhealthy. Yeah, if you over here smoking this recreational, you smoking this synthetic, or you smoking this pure? This is the difference. These are the people that are smoking because they want to be high. They want to be, feeling a wave or something like that. You smoke pure. And so, yes, once you, one thing that is the conclusion of of these meditations is that you always want to work on your base consciousness. You always want to improve it so that you're able to like I said, you're able to perceive things, and this is how you're able to live transdimensionally almost. Because what it will cause is for your base consciousness to be at your highest level of consciousness. And by living that way, what you're able to do things that you may not thought possible with your mind. And also you're able to understand things more collectively, you're able to deal with your life from a perspective of the future. You're not caught up in the confusion and the mysticism of now. You're not, lost in just the basic baseline train of thinking, which is what is commonly perceived as the mainstream. But you don't let yourself be just slightly above it, like the typical vegetarian in elitism, and create it out to be this, monstrosity of horrors, despite your greater understanding of its shortcomings. As far as that goes, the average individual, the average person that you perceive or understand, the average person that you understand is left. Those are the people that are more reliant on that stream because those are the people that are not at the same level of intelligence. They don't have greater purpose in life because if they did, they would be able to utilize those skills. And this is the reason why you're aware of these things, and you have to be able to strengthen your perception and function throughout with these things. These are higher levels of consciousness. This is the reason why a concept can be analyzed, perceived, or whatever when you smoke, or whatever, and you'll be like, oh, this is so amazing. Like, this is the reason why you're able to think like in that dynamic, in that dimension, because you're thinking from a higher level of thinking. So therefore, there's different variables. There's more objectivity. There's more vibrance. This is things that are expressed in my work. I put some of my work out. I put out some of my collections of art. And these people literally go and they censor it. They literally take some of the artwork down. It's literally one of the most bare minimal form of censorship as a byproduct of lesser mentality than can even be cohesively expressed. It is to the point where just your expressions, your ideas, your thoughts are so extreme that the person of mainstream mentality cannot handle it. They will do whatever it takes. I'm talking about just down to the point of artwork. The way I place artwork in my writings are things that are achieved through higher states of consciousness through meditation. Real meditation. I don't know what these people are talking about. When you understand real meditation, you're able to understand certain aspects of reality. Like a lot of times people get caught up in like common misconceptions, certain aspects of reality that maybe have taken form in various forms, like certain aspects of like for example, the way people perceive CERN. They'll like perceive it in a way that you'll know through actual meditation what is actually happening, but they'll have like this, this wild theory. So, anyways, this is my writing Xenon. It's all written from a psychic space that is higher than base consciousness. I'm not getting like high and then just being like, oh, let me write today. I'm not doing that at all. As a matter of fact, sometimes I won't even be smoking and I'll still be able to write Xenon because I'll be able to traverse some sort of information some through meditative space, whether it just be just through the process of writing in general and just achieving some aspect of height, or it just be through me actually meditating and achieving the information. One way or another, that entire writing is done from that space. Most of my writing, and I call it channeling, even though it's not really what people commonly perceive, take what it's not really. It's definitely not like channeling. I call it channeling from the perspective of channeling higher states of being in order to write a story. And so it is really interesting and cool. And when I find out that deeper in the story, there are things that are multi-dimensional. How do I know these things are multi-dimensional? Because they'll hold relevance to things that are happening now, but they'll also hold relevance to things that are going to happen in the near future. How does this make any sense at all? This makes sense because this is the type of information that you're more conscious of when you are able to improve your baseline consciousness all the way up to your greater state of being. People that are psychic have some understanding of these levels. They have some understanding of it in order for them to get momentum, even when I realize that they're scammers. I saw some information about some person, this girl, she like, I don't even know what it was. I just watched it for literally 2 minutes. But they had this whole series about this girl who had ended up achieving like a very wealthy life selling tarot cards, and she wasn't even a real psychic. So I don't know. I call it channeling by me doing the writing that I'm writing, and what I find out in my writing is that it's a lot of stuff is interdimensional. And it's to the point where I've literally placed things in order and they've been censored because of how powerful they are. I'm telling you flat out, if you look through Xenon, my writing, you will be surged. You know, if you know, I don't even know. I don't really particularly like. I know I have a general idea of like what a base-minded person would take away from it, but the fact that the way that the art was censored, it really shows you the difference of levels of intellectual acceptance, understanding, technology, futurism, spirituality, and how one version of it is not accepted from someone of lower state of being. And this is what you perceive to be the mainstream. This is the lowest form of thinking. I'm literally writing most of my writing is done through channeling. I'm not just writing Xenon. I write Soul Calibur. I also write um, Batman. I write Sailor Moon. All of the writing is done through channeling. All of it. All of it's done through channeling. All of it's done through higher states of being. So regardless, I mean, the side point from that is just one constant understanding of your absolute highest state of being is that you have to lift your baseline state of being in order to have any chance of having super high state of being as a baseline throughout the baseline throughout your baseline existence of life. And from the perspective of someone who's like always self-improving or whatever it is, from the perspective of someone who's always seeking some sort of spiritual understanding, or from the perspective of someone who is going down the path of spirituality and at some point they do break a boundary of spiritual domain and they come to um, shock or bafflement or whatever. This is just merely a state of consciousness. And it comes really into focus when you are able to compare just baseline consciousness you are. But like I said before, most people aren't going to be able to come to the consideration. Like, for example, even if you look at something as simple as like what are some of the basic boundaries? Well, one is being a vegetarian. Most people aren't going to be able to perceive, a life where they don't eat meat. They're not going to be able to conceive that. What are some of the other blatant boundaries, barriers? They don't believe in God, so therefore they're not going to be able to ever understand anything in the absolute and anything beyond basic conception, because they'll never have the basic neurological states of acceptance to think far enough. What are some of the other boundaries? their ability to process anything beyond sexual engagement, their ability to control themselves physically, mentally. At the same time, their ability to understand the difference between their mind, their body, and their soul. But to always be aware of it, to not get stuck into a state of reaction, to not be stuck in a state of reaction and action. You can only be able to effortlessly maintain this level of focus by breaking those states of consciousness from just basic baseline consciousness. And once you get to the pinnacle of pinnacle, you'll know you're there because the pinnacle of meditation, you'll know you're there because you'll understand why everything is the way it is. You'll have an understanding of what your purpose is in life. You won't be able to be fooled like everyone is constantly being fooled in decisions with what it is you should do. You'll always be coming from perceiving things from a place of what's fundamentally kind of understood as wisdom. You'll also be able to understand higher learning because a lot of information is actually scrubbed from public consumption, public access. There are certain bridges to the gap that are missing. But to be able to come to this existence on your own, you'll only be able to really achieve it if you have really good people around you to the point where you're exposed to environmental things that will expand your mind and help you think in more of a sort of green ivy way of thinking. And even going down that route could get you caught up in academia. You would have to be able to think at your highest state of being. And this is really more or less what will make someone elite. This is how you can cultivate someone into being elite. Truly elite. Or this can just be a byproduct of you truly being elite. Genetically is a way you can perceive it. But you will beat that 5%. One thing I'm catching wind of now that they're starting to, seems to be somewhat gearing up is this negativity towards the 5%. I mean, in terms of the devil winning in the world and the devil being king of the world and all this other BS. It's not true. It's just, stupidity can reign, but at the end of the day, if the mainstream is focused in the right direction, and then society and civilization will prosper and vibrance in every direction. It's just in the 90s, things went wrong in so many different ways. I guess things just went wrong in so many different ways. But the overall arc and projection of society was in the right order. It was on the right path. And that's what happens, when you make the mainstream. When you have a society that's run by an actual elite. People that are truly elite in thought. But I mean, aside from that, I mean, that's just one aspect of it. I mean, elite is just one aspect of it, of being able to conceive things from a higher state of being. You understand that these different states exist because these are the states that you go through in meditation. So aside from smoking and then, being able to easier achieve higher states of mental consciousness, perception, understanding. Aside from understanding that at a base level, you want to work on your basic mentality so you can be able to perceive things and answer questions, through a similar fashion. You understand these states because these are always the same states that you go to in order to achieve supreme being and understanding. These are the states of meditation, and not everyone is able to really meditate. For most people, meditation, their pinnacle of meditation will be self-reflection. But why is it self-reflection? Because this is a state of their being. This is the limits of their intellect. This is truly what most people who are influenced by basic every single day mainstream reality, this is their mentality. From top to bottom, self-reflection is what they will achieve. They will sit there, hum. Typically, these are the people that perceive meditation from the perspective of Buddhism or Hinduism, in the form of mantras, in the form of energies, zone, energy, um, whatever, I forgot what they're called, in the form of meditating with their legs crossed and their hands doing like different sort of gestures. This right here, that form of meditation is relative to that ideal of spirituality. That's not this meditation that will get. I can't speak on that meditation, but they're using spiritual gateways, I'm assuming, in order to achieve the highest state of being. And see, one thing about the Bible, it tells you is that you don't want to tie yourself unclean spirits. And whenever you're dealing with false religions and stuff like that, this is just a byproduct of meditation. You understand, aspects of God. This is how you can really kind of understand if someone is like really meditating, then whether or not, is because they're able to conclude like things that are like tangible and comprehensible. God being like actually God is real. So no matter how you try to break it down, by you meditating and understanding that God is God, that proves that you actually are meditating. Just like you being able to decipher your purpose in life and that really be your purpose in life. Just like you being able to try to figure out like, how it is you can create some sort of improving system and it actually work. You may be going through all these different aspects of philosophy, but the philosophy that you do uncover, like for example, the universal truth that man to a woman is her religion. When you're able to understand that, when you're also able to understand things like universal truths, like God is real, there is only one God. You know, when you're able to understand the importance of improving your baseline understanding of intelligence, when you are able to conceive what someone would conceive to be the mainstream, when you're not particularly smoking to get high, but you're just smoking because you like basically having more strength in mental space for whatever reason it is that you're doing, you understand using cannabis as a more of a construction agent to your psychology and psyche, as opposed to just using it as some sort of recreational agent. You not smoking whatever is going to get you the most blitzed. You know, you're not drinking alcohol. This is another common aspect of the matrix, though, or whatever baseline general common thinking. Alcohol, they'll have you thinking alcohol is the thing to do. Alcohol, no good stories have come of alcohol. None. There's no mind expansion. There's no meditation coming from that at all. And when you truly meditate, these are things that you come to understand. So this is how you come to realize that the stages of meditation you go through are stages of being. They truly are stages of being. And your ability to sustain that level of being in, you know, a completely, you can call it sober, non-smoking state, your ability to do that, you'll understand the importance of doing that when you are able to do things like truly meditate. One priority I always have is like, okay, when I don't smoke at all or whatever, let me go out and like take additional steps to improve my meditation, which is like seeking nature, you know, being at peace, being able to breathe, having moments of tranquility, of being able to achieve those environments. There was a time when I was studying meditation, when I was learning about different levels of being, and I kind of like could realize like how to actually meditate, that I really kind of devalued the importance of being able to like be in nature and to like feel the energy, because in the beginning stages, and it takes away all of the effort to prepare to meditate. It really does uh, make it a lot more difficult for you to traverse the first two stages of active and reactive states of being. Hold on, let me make sure I get the right charger. I'm just gonna assume that my phone talking about orientation lock. But yeah, all my writing is done through channeling, and that is just one tangible byproduct of what it is that you do. If I was to really put myself out there as being a psychic, then I would like to have some sort of track record of doing something, some sort of prediction. And I do believe that it is psychic space that can be traversed through meditation. I do believe that there is definitely an area of that. I mean, at least knowing of just, I don't even like talking about this because of mainstreaming of things, but just basically understanding like greater consciousness and just understanding like the perspective of thinking from a person's, from a spiritual perspective, or thinking from a spirit, thinking, in terms of from spiritual understanding, thinking, you know beyond, I guess, what could be conceived as dimensions. You understand how people really can get to a point where they can understand aspects of the future. There are real psychics. They are very real, and you'll understand this, once you learn how to through meditation. If you ever do push certain boundaries, you may find yourself running into psychics. But meditation in and of itself, I mean, it really is a, if it's not something that you are more or less born into, if it's something that you more or less exercise, for example, then it is, meditation is basically psychic practice. From the perspective of someone who's just very base minded, it would be perceived as psychic practice. The level of information that you're able to derive, the things that you're able to do, you'll realize when you bring these things around people that are base minded, and they be astounded or overwhelmed. You'll see it in their eyes. I remember there was this time when I was curating art, and I was sitting there, and I had this lady over my shoulder who knew the value of the type of art I was curating, and she was able to see the things that I was doing in terms of like the way that I had it organized behind, and she was just like just seeing the work was in sort of a state of elevated psyche state. Expanding people's minds by just showing things to them is a prime example of like witnessing like someone's consciousness sort of raise for a small period of time. So I'm just ending it on really expressing it, just to just get the point across that this is real. Not just me smoking on like New Year's Day or something like that. And this is where you're able to derive greater understandings of things like why it is that when you speak you sound so bad. Like what I spoke on last night. No, do not let me find out that Smoke in the Dark 3 was completely muted all the way through. They over here giving me all these different angel numbers while I'm over here talking about this stuff. But just understanding the dimensions and the dynamics of it, the greater spectrum of things, is a byproduct of you actually truly being able to meditate, but just really being able to contrive it into concise things. If I was like, and so that's kind of where I leave it. I don't spend all my energy particularly traversing people's space. But I can tell you in premonitions about the end of the world, and they be real. So I think that covered everything that I missed that could have been possibly muted over in the first 3 hours of this stream. But like I said in the beginning of this, which probably was muted over if it was muted over, was I'm going to be going through some past video scripts that I've written out with just the understanding of if I don't go over them live, I may never go over them. But these are things that I really held dear to myself, and I want to go over them on stream to process them even deeper. I want to be able to like talk about them, go through a thought process of them, and then revisit this stream and further build on anything if there's anything further to build. If anything, what it will be is it'll be a run at actually making the content. I got different things like dealing with stupid people. I already made a piece about Black professionalism. See, a lot of this stuff is stuff that I really want to speak on. I don't have an M4 right now, but I'll have an M4. I have, notes about this, notes about Virginia, notes about being chosen. Notes about being about being a coward. 21 clear signs of a false prophet. This is one thing I think is really interesting, especially right now, with a lot of people really truly being misled, openly conned, overtly just, how to smoke, certain aspects of like synthetic, the ability to distinguish the difference between pure and synthetic. So even if someone is, for example, let's say, for example, someone has the potential of being very, let's just say for sake of this, telepathic, and they're over here smoking synthetic, they've never experienced pure, then they wouldn't understand the correlation between their ability to meditate and what it is they smoke. So this piece on like synthetic and pure, I think is important because it really goes over some details about synthetic that someone who may not be familiar with pure wouldn't be able to distinguish. It's a list of someone who like thinks that they smoke, that like dresses like a Rastafarian, would not care to hear, but it's a list of like someone who's like a true smoker or maybe a true deep thinker, maybe someone who understands what I'm speaking on in terms of higher consciousness and would like, or from that perspective, it's something that like details that that person needs to consider when smoking, um, when looking for like what it is they're smoking and like what it is that they get from. Like for example, if the strain is unknown, what does this really mean? See, a lot of people they wouldn't even really consider it as anything. They'd be like, "Oh, this is bubblegum OG Kush. I know what this is. This is this strain called bubblegum and this strain called Kush." Do some research on it. That never even existed. That whole strain is probably synthetic, and you don't even know it. So this is like one red flag of a lot of red flags that will sort of tip you off, because the thing about synthetic is because a lot of it is psychological, it can be very easy to misinterpret. And when you hear all of the details point by point in succession, and you're able to realize, like, damn, I did smoke that. It didn't taste like anything. I didn't get any sort of kief. I am super duper sleepy. It did clog my grinder. It did move around like Play-Doh. Guess what? All of those things you had synthetic. And see, the thing about it is, if you never smoke pure, you wouldn't really notice the difference. Someone could sit there and tell you like, "Yo, this is high grade." Whole time it is high grade relative to what's on the market, but really it's pure. It's universal truth. Some of the things I did speak on. If things that you understand through truly meditating. But, I don't really have too many notes for that. But, I mean, these are just different sort of notes for some things that I wanted to really speak on that I've always been brainstorming for some time in my notes. Some of these notes have been around for well over a year of, like, things I want to make into content, but they're just things that I haven't really been compelled to kind of go through because of kind of like certain stages of like where I'm at with things. But I just kind of recognize that if I don't speak on these things, that I may never make a video. See, I don't even losing everything. What can I mean, these are just different notes. Certain notes about consciousness. So yeah, just different notes. Some of these things I already made videos on, like my advice to my younger self. This is where the notes from that video came from. A lot of this stuff is unrefined thought, things that I was kind of like working on that I haven't really put together. Deuteronomy 15:4-11. See, this is like a note that I had in there. We're just gonna see what that is. Just to give you like an insight on what I'm considering. The level of what I'm talking on. Wow. That's wild. And see, that right there is just one of my notes. And that right there is a note that's just kind of in there. So I think that covers everything that I spoke on when the microphone I found was muted. Yo, this camera is backwards. That's crazy. Whatever, it's probably a good thing that no one's able to really subscribe my notes. Because I got a lot of really sort of like powerful things in there, like signs of a false prophet. Signs of a false prophet. As a matter of fact, you know what? Because the camera was off, I'm just gonna put it. I'm gonna put this on XENON. So you know, it's New Year's Day. How much of this can you see? I've been really interested in a format of presenting this. Yeah, this is exactly. It's my writing done through channeling and meditation. It's pretty wild. I mean, this stuff right here may seem to be kind of this is my writing. And so the whole entire overall scheme of the writing is already like basically known. I just basically do things when I'm writing it to fill in the blanks. And I have two versions of the writing. I have it in actual, and then I also have it in art. Or you can say animation. So this is the same thing, it's just an animation. And one thing you'll notice is that what the animation does is it actually fills in a lot of blanks of the like live, I guess you can call it whatever, like the reality version. And so it gives you more insight on like the reality version, I guess is what I'm calling it right now. But you'll notice it's still the same thing. Scenes like this scene and this scene and this scene, and going through the desolate wasteland, things like this, the empty buildings, the water, desolation, underground, here's city, this is desolation. This is utopia, this is utopia, dystopia. These certain elements, here's this sort of beach. If you look at the live action, you'll see these things. If you look at the live action, or if you look through this, you'll see, how things align. See, here's the grocery store area. Here are the underground systems. The buildings. This is the sort of area where the agricultural projects. See, this is it here. So with this part right here, it's really a matter of like filling in the blanks, continuing the story. And then there's also the storylines. There's also different storylines. So this is like 5 different storylines right here. And I can show you one of the storylines from last season, which is going to be changed. Or I wouldn't say changed, but it's going to be, it's going to be updated to the current season. And so this is what it looks like. This is a story. This is the first 2 seasons of storyline. This is a story. And so a lot of it's done through channeling, through meditating and stuff like that. I could sit here and be like, I want to say like there's different ways I can explain the process that I'm going through. But if I were to say that I was doing anything other than what I'm really doing, I'd be making something up. I'm literally meditating using higher consciousness to come up with the storyline of this writing. And some of the ways in which I've organized artwork has gotten to the point where it's been censored. And so I'm confident that if someone looks at this, they will have their mentality heightened. But that's just a byproduct of how much heightened mentality is behind the writing. It's really where it comes from. So these are a lot of different things or whatever that are sort of more or less byproducts of meditation. And these are things that you'll be able to contrive when you are effectively meditating. And these type of things are not going to come in the same form for people that are aligned in different ways. But you'll be able to perceive this and you'll be able to know what they are. Like there was this one time when I remember I was out and this dude, he was like talking about how like his wife had like come to some sort of like pivotal moment in their life where she realized her purpose in life was like to make these little cups. And he showed me these cups and they were like the most like wonky looking cups. They were like these little plastic cups. Like it just looked like someone had just gotten high and just made whatever they felt like. They were all like trippy looking cups, like it's something with LSD trip. That right there is not deriving purpose out of meditation. That right there is deriving high thoughts out of meditation. That's not something that is tangible. That's not someone's purpose in life. Do you think there's someone really sitting there making those cups? This man had a simple little display he was selling these cups off of. And he was not excited about what he was doing. What he was doing was not really. I don't see how anyone of consciousness would derive any fulfillment from sitting over there basically having themselves an LSD ride. So those aren't particularly tangible things that you would derive out of meditation. This is typically what people do derive out of their approaches to doing these things, doing things like ayahuasca. This is something that a lot of base mind mentality people do. They do ayahuasca and then they come out of the ayahuasca, with this premonition of water and the harmonic symbols between it. And the whole time they just went on a whole entire LSD trip. That's not any sort of byproduct of meditating. That's not any sort of byproduct of coming from a higher state of being. So you'll know this because you'll have purpose and direction in whatever it is you do. The person that does this is the person that understands, that achieves a level of athletic ability that seems to be unnatural. A person that does what they're supposed to do, or a person that derives what their purpose is in life, finds activities that give them fulfillment at a rate that no other activity can, and they find a way to organize their life around it. These people are able to achieve higher levels of existence. And this is the reason why they're able to do things that seem to be phenomenal feats. They're receiving energy from what it is that they do, and they, in return, are giving extreme energy to what it is they're doing. They're in a process of synergistic existence. This is a higher state of being, period. This is a higher state of being. When you can achieve that for yourself, this is a higher state of being. And you'll have byproducts of this higher state of being, because you'll have positive outputs, and they won't just be things that are just like trivial, or maybe like I think trivial is the way to put it. You'll actually be able to look at these things and be like, wow, like this is kind of more or less something that is of, substantial positivity. You may have a certain level of mindedness when it comes to dealing with politics. You may have a certain level of strength when it comes to speaking. You may have, a certain air of confidence in the way you behave and the way you move. And the reason being is because you have achieved a higher state of being. I don't want to keep dragging it on and on. I'm kind of upset when I realized that the microphone was muted and there were things that I talked about that that were left out because no one could hear me. So I'm just trying to make sure that I cover all the topics that I left on. Because it's New Year's Day. And we're gonna keep chugging along. I'm gonna keep working on my social skills. I don't care, if my thumbnails on this platform make me look ridiculous. I'm gonna keep working on the things that I have to work on. I understand why I face the level of obstacle that I face. And no, I'm not reducing it just to the sake of the color of my skin and freaking what is it called? Old time America, covert, overt racism, capitalism, whatever you want to, however you want to spin it. I'm pushing through, and so in doing this, I'm jotting out my thoughts. And so one thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go through these notes. But one thing I really want to do is go to the store. I just couldn't use the mental. But I gotta make sure I get up there before it starts to get dark, because skating in the dark and then flying around. So it's 2 o'clock and it starts getting dark around 5. It'll take me roughly 40 minutes to get up there and 40 minutes to get back. All right, Mo, come on. Mo, come on. All right, go in there. Yeah, if I find them, I'll put them Oh man, listening to kids chatter doesn't really help. Oh. So I wanted to really catch the stream really quick and debate whether or not I should go skate to this store to get a couple of things. If I don't leave now, I'm not going to be able to get the sort of benefits of it. But if I do leave now, I'm going to have to stop the stream. So I'm just kind of going through the thought process of like, this is kind of the New Year's stream. I do want to go through some notes. So I'm thinking this could probably be a good moment to go to an intermission. And then maybe I can just go on the whole skating process and then come back. But there's really no point in me putting on like a 2 hour long intermission. At the same time, I don't want to make two pieces. Like I don't want to have two different streams covering the same day. Like I don't really like doing that too much. So I'm tempted to just do what I do, like when I put Move on a Walk, put the camera up and then go do what I'm gonna do and then come back. I just gotta make a decision now, sooner than later, because if I don't leave now, it's gonna get dark. And it's just hilarious. I mean, it's not necessarily pride inducing for something like that to be like a politic behind me going out and getting something done. But to be fair, in the grand scheme of reality, I've had a car throughout a lot of periods of my life. So I'm not going to sit here and perceive it like some wondrous kid who just thinks that the grass is clearly going to be greener if all I could do is just drive. But I do want to go to the grocery store and like get some pizza or something like that. I mean, here's the thing: I could order pizza, but the problem with that is I won't get the benefit of skating to the store. And I got to do these things to prevent the synthetic from, in short, like ruining my life. Forcing me to take on sleeping schedules that someone depressed would take on. See, that's one downside to synthetic that you got to really be aware of. And it's that it will make you tired like you want to go to sleep all the time. It'll always lead you to this state of like, oh, let me just take a nap. That right there is one big red flag. And if you are trying to achieve, self improvement and things, and you are smoking synthetic, that is one way you'll really get held back. Because what we'll do is it'll put your body through stages and hormonal fluctuations that'll make you feel like you're depressed or something. Because you'll be sleeping at a absorbent rate, and that's basically what you do when you go through depressions. And it's a problem with synthetic because smoking like that, yeah, you probably do need some help. You'll know that you're kind of in this state when you're neglecting things in your life that you have to do in order to progress. Maybe you're doing something as one thing that's really common is like not keeping up with hygiene. And honestly, I'm going to be honest, these are things that maybe one thing would be like not walking moot. For the past few days, I haven't really been walking moot. I'm not in a perfect state to skate up to this part, like to this place. I'm not like, for example, like been planning this and I'm like fully hydrated and I'm ready to go right now. But I recognize that I have to do this if my mental state is going to improve over the next few days. Because this synthetic and just the weather conditions have really got me out of sync. And I just don't want to, all in the house walked out as much as I want to stay on the stream. I'm hoping that the things that I spoke on are enough for me to break the matrix, just enough for me to push the envelope a little bit further. Because that's basically what I have to do. And that's basically what I'm going to keep doing. And this is more or less why I want to kind of more or less get through one of these scripts. I mean, they're scripts that are designed. I mean, maybe I'm rushing the process. If my objective was to put out content, then I have plenty of that to put out. That's not really what my objective is. But I do want to put out content that I can listen back to in a higher mental state and build on so I can do the things that I have to do. Like drive again. I gotta keep my mind clear. I can't be sitting out here doing things that are common to people going through depression and then have my body go through those hormonal cycles and then try to do things and then try to get things done, because in that case I'll feel as though I'm overcoming some sort of like, it'll be kind of like it'll be a struggle. Sometimes this state can be so bad, like people will get to the point where they won't even want to walk their dog. They'll just be so enveloped, if that's the right word to say, that they'll just get caught up in the meticulous of the meticulous. They'll hit the bottom of the bottom. They'll be in the most chilling space of a dark depression, which, to be honest, could be a very enjoyable place. But the only way you could perceive satisfaction from depression is typically if you're like some form of genius. Like, typically artists are able to find a lot of their strength in this place. This is the reason why like a lot of art is especially good when people are going through like stressful periods in their life. They feel abundance of stress. It gives them something to bolster themselves against, oftentimes. So from that perspective, being in some of the darkest points of depression, where just you walking your dog causes you to go through gut-wrenching pain. Living in that existence, you gotta fight against it, you know? So this is the reason why I'm more or less ending this stream and going up here to the store. I've just been sitting indoors for the past few days, like, sleeping out of sync is one part of just living you can call it Zen life that you can sort of adapt to. Without negative consequence. But being put to sleep all the time, multiple times throughout the day, especially when it's nice outside, will push you through Psyches of depression. And it ain't no point in having the world that heavy when you gotta get stuff done. So I gotta make sure that I keep my mind as a priority and get outside and do these things. Law enforcement and all. It's just important for me to sustain my psyche. But in terms of like the content, I'm just gonna push myself to break the barrier a bit to sort of accelerate certain aspects of my life to the best of my ability. So I'm gonna try my best to talk and sort of like improve along all the lines that I need to improve. Deal with my emotional spikes, deal with some of the issues of dealing with the conscious reality of being basically famous, but like not actually being able to really like conceive the fame and you know, in real life due to isolation issues and stuff like that. Forces working against me. And also just the ability to get the channel to the right place and really construct my ideas and make them into what I know that they should be. Using my ability to meditate at higher understandings or whatever, and to be able to contextualize those things into things that I deal with on a daily basis. Not just things that are conceptual in time, space, and what you can consider to be dimensions. So long story short, I can't afford to be like depressed. And that's where I'm going to kind of bring this stream right here. So hopefully when I look at this back, I'll have enough strength to come through with my next stream and start you all at this sort of stage and like keep things going in this direction so we can get to the point where we can explain ourselves fluidly like people do on the news. So we can speak clearly like people do who make a living, you know, speaking on various things, however they speak on these things. So yeah, I'm gonna go make sure that you know I keep up with like my mental health, and I'm gonna go ahead and take this trip. I'll catch you on the next one.